In this video, we're going to be graphing an absolute value equation of the form y is equal to a times the absolute value of x. Okay, so let's start with the parent function of an absolute value function, which is just y equals absolute value of x. Keep in mind that absolute value, if you put a negative number inside, it will turn positive. That's because absolute value is a measure of distance, and distance can't be negative. So some of these points, if I plug in, say, -2 in for x, it'll become a +2. Okay, so -2, 2. If I plug a -1 in, it'll become a +1, so -1, 1. The absolute value of 0 is still 0. And then if you put a +1 in an absolute value, it stays +1. And same with the 2. So 1, 2. So you can graph this, plotting those points. So here's 0, 0. Here's -1, 1, -2, 2. Okay, and then here is 1, 1, and 2, 2. Those are all 5 points there. So the graph parent function of an absolute value looks like that. Okay, now what happens if I put a negative number out in front of the absolute value? So instead of y is equal to absolute value of x, we have y is equal to negative absolute value of x. Okay, well, the negative that's on the outside will not get affected by the absolute value, so it'll just stay. You can see here, this stays out front, right? So looking at the first one, we plug a -2 into the absolute value. The -2 becomes positive because of the absolute value, but there's still this extra negative that's sitting here. So it's going to go back to negative because of the negative that's out front. Okay. Same with the -1. The absolute value makes it positive, but the negative that's sitting out front makes it go negative again. Let's see, that one's 0. Absolute value of 1 is still +1, but there's that negative out front. Same here, negative out front. So let's put these points down. Okay, so I can graph those real quick, see what this looks like with a negative absolute value of x. So my first point is -2, 2, -2, -2. That's there. -1, -1. 0, 0. 1, -1. 2, -2. Okay, so you can see that it looks very similar, except the direction is the opposite. Okay. Now, we figured out what the parent functions of the absolute value is, even when it has a negative out front, it just makes it go upside down. But now we're going to talk about what happens if we have a number out front. Okay, so if you want to graph y is equal to a, where a is any real number times the absolute value of x, you start at 0, 0, because you're not being shifted up. Those will come later. So if it had like a +3 out here or something, then you would have to start somewhere else. But since there's no numbers out here, then you start at 0, 0. So let's look at this first one. We'll put a point right here at 0, 0, as we're told. And then it says over 1, up or down a. So up if a is positive, and down if a is negative. Okay, so what is our a? Our a is 2. That's positive. Okay, so let's go back to here. It says over 1, and we'll go up a. So up 2. So over 1, up a. That's 2. Over 1, up a. There we go. So this is kind of like a slope, right? Except when we go to the left, we have to also go up. So over 1, up 2. Over 1, up 2. So here's what the absolute value of, or y is equal to 2 times the absolute value of x. Okay, with this one, we have y is equal to -3 times the absolute value of x. Okay, so our a is -3. Okay, remember, since there's no number out here, like a +5 or a -3 or whatever it would be, you start at 0, 0. We know that's a point on the graph because it hasn't been shifted at all. Okay, and it says go over in either direction, and then go in the direction of and distance of this. Okay, so our a is -3. So when I go over 1, I have to go negative. I have to go down 3. And if I had a little more room here, I could go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over it would be about right there. Okay, and then do the same thing, go over to the left and down 3. And it would be about right here if I had a little more graph. So here's what the graph looks like. And that is the graph of y is equal to -3 times the absolute value of x. Okay, one last one here. So we've got y is equal to 5 times the absolute value of x. So a is equal to 5. That's positive. So when we go over, we're going to be going up 5. Okay, so start in the middle, 1 over, up 5, 1 over, up 5. And that's all the graph we have. So we can stop there. This would be what the absolute value, or y equals 5 times the absolute value of x would be equal to. And notice that this one is skinnier than the other ones. So the bigger your number out front, whether it's positive or negative, the skinnier your absolute value is going to be. The smaller your number is, but if it's between 0 and 1, like a fraction, like 2/3 or 1/3, then the wider this would be.